Hi, welcome to Sunya IS and welcome to the day 13 of our 20 days prelim series Cut the Clutter. The topic for today is history for prelims, and probably this is going to be one of the most requested as well as one of the longest videos of our series, because I will be discussing all the four parts of history: ancient, medieval, modern, art and culture, step by step. And I would also be giving you important themes from all the subjects separately, so that the biggest problem of history, that is, we are not able to actually decide how much to study, from where to study, what is the bare minimum, and what should be revised maximum times in these days. Those problems probably will be solved a little if you know what these themes are. And the themes that I would be giving you would be based strictly on the areas that UPSC has been asking questions from. So we will start. Firstly, before starting with the separate parts of history, let's discuss the basic question that we start every video with. Why is history important? Okay, so the simple answer to this question is that because it comes every year. Now you may feel that in the past 3-4 years the weightage of history has degraded and questions are not being asked. And anyways, history is a little complicated to study because it needs constant revision. You need to memorize a lot of it, and in the last 80 days, to most aspirants, if given an option, they would place history at the most bottom of their preferences that they would want to revise. And then again and again, a lot of aspirants in the last days also have been asking me, ma'am, should we skip it completely? The answer to this is no, because if you individually see, for example, in the last 2-3 years, the weightage of modern history might not be a lot, okay? But overall history still remains important. You still get 12 to 14 questions, sometimes even up to 20 questions from a total of mixture of all these four parts. So you cannot leave history in total. The second question is, should we leave some parts of it? For example, there is a very common dialogue that we should not pay a lot of attention to medieval history because questions are not asked. I can understand if you would not want to give enough time, equal time, to modern and medieval, but you should also not skip medieval completely. Simple reason being, when you study history, it is in a continuous flow from ancient to medieval to modern and then to post. So if you skip medieval in between, then you directly jump from ancient to modern, there is some linkage that you miss. And then when you finally come to 1757 and then ancient, you have ended it, the medieval part which is missing in between, that part if you don't know at all, then you feel a little uncomfortable reading the initial chapters of modern history. The chapters 1757 to 1857 are very problematic for most of us because firstly, it requires a lot of memorization. Secondly, because most of us would want to skip medieval, so we don't have context before that. Then the only option that remains is that we have to memorize it, okay? So if you ask me, you should not skip medieval. Okay, your attention, your time can be a little less as compared to other parts, as compared to art and culture, but you should not be skipping the complete medieval history as per my understanding. Third, the questions are not coming from medieval. Again, that is a little controversial because sometimes you might not be able to find questions directly from medieval, but it does have an overlap. You know, it might have an overlap with architecture. Some medieval architecture might be asked. So then who decides that if that question is particularly from art and culture or it has an overlap with medieval? So first humble advice to you would be, don't skip medieval completely. You should be studying ancient, medieval, modern in that order, and then art and culture overlaps with all three. I will tell you in the coming minutes how. But firstly, don't skip anything, okay? And the weightage is substantial. Yes, some years art and culture will dominate, some years modern will dominate, some years ancient might dominate. And you actually never know, maybe this year medieval dominates, because no guarantee is there that until now if something hasn't been asked, it won't be asked again, right? So firstly, don't skip anything. Now, how to actually find out themes? So right now I would want you to pause the video. Please take an A4 sheet, divide it into 4 parts, or just divide it into 2 parts, front and back, and start writing the themes that I'm going to tell you. Firstly, we will start with ancient history, and also I will discuss with you the sources that I used, I feel would give you more return, and then I'll also give you a choice that if you don't want to do what I did, then what you should be doing. But firstly, please write the themes, okay? So for ancient and medieval, I am giving a combined theme list. In total, I have divided it into almost 14 themes. Okay, these are combined for ancient and medieval. Please write a little quickly because we also have to discuss themes for other parts. First would be prehistory and Indus Valley civilization. Second would be Vedic culture. Third would be Buddhism and Jainism, a very important theme you cannot afford to miss. We have had around 15 questions in the past 5-7 years specifically from this theme, so it is very important. Fourth would be Mauryan Empire. Again, this is very important. Fifth would be Gupta and post-Gupta era. Sixth would be personalities. You know, with the questions we get that what is the following, who is the following work attributed to, or maybe they will ask contemporaries. All these kind of questions will fall under personalities. Seventh would be miscellaneous for ancient history. In this, I have not been able to actually place it into a particular theme, but questions like, you know, sometimes they will ask about ports, or sometimes they will ask about scholars and literatures. So all of these combined would be the seventh theme for ancient, that would be miscellaneous. Okay. Now we will start with medieval. First would be early medieval India. In this you would be getting questions from dynasties like Chandela, Parmara. Then next would be Delhi Sultanate. Again, we have had 4 to 5 questions in the last few years. So again, this is comparatively important. 10th would be Vijayanagar Empire. Please put a star mark next to this. This is one of the UPSC's favorite area and they repeat questions from this again and again. Next would be 11th would be Mughal Empire. Again, this overlaps a lot with art and culture. Next would be medieval India terminologies. You know, they ask that what does this following term mean? Sometimes it can mean a currency, sometimes it can mean, you know, something else, a ritual or something. So overall, I have termed this medieval India terminology. Then again, a very important theme, just like Jainism and Buddhism in ancient, here it will be Bhakti and Sufi movements. Please do this chapter very properly. And then finally, miscellaneous for medieval history. Again, I have placed the questions in this chapter that actually cannot be put in a particular theme because they have overlapping options. For example, you got a question in 2023, who among the following rulers of medieval Gujarat surrendered due to Portuguese? Now, it is also from medieval, it is also from the early years of modern history, so the overlap. Okay. I hope you have taken the note of all the themes of ancient and medieval. Now, first, before telling you how to actually explore these themes and how to align your study to these themes because they are the prominent areas of UPSC, we will just quickly discuss what I think should be the source for ancient and medieval, what I used. If you don't want to do that, what is the alternate? If you want to go by standard books, as per my understanding, these two NCERTs, they are one of the best books for ancient and medieval, one source. I know that every year one absurd question comes and then every year there is one new book that will claim that idhar se question aaya tha. So next year that everybody starts doing that book. But since ancient and medieval is not something that we would want to dedicate our whole time to, but we would want to do the bare minimum, I still feel that even after so many years, if these two books are done properly, you will gain a fair understanding of timeline, which is very important in history anyways. We will talk about it in the coming video. Okay. So these two are the NCERTs. I read these two NCERTs, developed my understanding of what ancient and medieval are until 100 days before prelims. Okay, I highlighted them. I made a few, you know, side notes. I used sticky notes. Good to go. But then now when 190, 80 days to prelims are left and we have to do so many things. We have to do CSAT. We have to do the core subjects like polity, economy, environment. I found it a little difficult to revise these books because again, although they are NCERTs, they are very dense in content and there is a lot of things to memorize and I couldn't memorize all of it. I wanted to revise all my prelims portion at least 5 to 7 times and that was not possible with NCERT. So what I actually used is this book. You can see I have highlighted it, read it across through my attempts and it is legit highlighted. Almost every word is highlighted. Then I used to actually draw maps in that. I used to use sticky notes and even consolidate it further. This was for ancient history. And the same I did was for medieval history again. Okay, I hope this is visible to you. These are the revision booklets. These are from Sunya. Any other revision booklets would also suffice. Now, if you don't want to shift to revision booklets, if you have read your NCERTs well, you have a pictographic memory of that, that is fine. Don't shift to it. I am just telling you why I shifted to it. And secondly, I am trying to discuss with you what was my logic. Simple logic was that I was not able to memorize every word of NCERT, and then I liked to revise my whole material 5 to 7 times immediately, 90 days, 100 days before prelims, and that was not possible for me from NCERTs. Hence I shifted to these books. These books are less in volume, and I have been very clear with you since the very beginning that to me volume matters. I would want that the book is thin. I am not saying that it should be so thin that it compromises with quality, but I would want to balance it. I would also weigh in for the quantity. These both books individually are roughly 70 to 80 pages. So my conversation with myself used to be that I cannot cover everything in ancient and medieval. I don't have time. I don't have the capacity. Let me do this bare minimum. I will memorize every word of these revision booklets. If questions is solved from here, good enough. If not, then probably I will skip that question and cover it into other subjects. Like I will score those marks in polity or economy where there are more chances of predictable questions. So this was a middle path. I was not leaving something completely, but I was also not overdoing it. I was not doing 10 PDFs. This was my ancient and medieval source. And as per my understanding and my experience, from these booklets, you will be able to solve those questions that every other aspirant is able to. Okay, and that was my whole goal. I never chased those 1-2 obscure question. In history, one golden rule should be control the controllables. So this was something that I could control. Okay. Now, I have discussed with you the sources. I have discussed with you the basic NCERTs that I think that work, and I have also given you themes. This is a document for ancient and medieval history. All the themes that I discussed with you have been listed in this as a chapter. The PDF for this we will attach in the description. Now, what do you need to do with this PDF? You should take a printout of it and then observe. For example, chapter 2 is Vedic culture. Now, whatever Vedic culture questions have come from 2017 to 2024, all of them you will find within this theme, and all of them are written one above the other. So then you will be actually able to see what words are being repeated. Even within Vedic culture, what is the core that is being repeated, and this is how you streamline your history study. That is how you put a limit, and that is how you convince yourself that okay, this should be something that I'll do honestly, and then beyond that, I'll let it be. So please, this is a PYQ. All the PYQs have been just distributed into several themes. That should be your goal. Okay, I will attach this for ancient and medieval in the description. You'll be able to find. Okay, now we are done with ancient and medieval. Now coming to art and culture. I think I'll do art and culture first, and then at the last we will do modern. Okay, art and culture. Again, if one NCERT that has to happen as per my understanding, which I read repeated times, I highlighted it, I made notes to it, would be this. I still think that this book is relevant as ever, and sometimes questions are directly asked from it. So rather than you going for very bulky books, for example, Nitin Singhania. Now, is it a good book? Of course it is. It is a beautifully written book, and it covers almost everything that you would want to know about art and culture. But then again, it is a little too much for you to memorize, and history demands rectification. So as per me, Nitin Singhania, again, if you have worked with it throughout the year, great. Don't shift from it, read it. But if you are someone like me who would want to proportionate their efforts in terms of history, my advice to you would be do this NCERT. This is the first step. If only one thing has to be done, it would be this. But then again, the things that it covers nicely, but it also misses some major chunk that also need to be studied. I would be discussing art and culture themes with you again. So what actually I did was, I again did this book, revision booklet. Any revision booklet would suffice. You can see I have integrated my maps to it. I have highlighted it. I have digested it. I just used to keep reading this, highlighting it, even consolidating it further by using bookmarks and sticky notes. Okay. Now, Firstly, I will discuss with you the themes for art and culture. Kindly please write. We will do it very quickly. The first theme would be Indian architecture. And we have roughly around 15 questions from it that you will be able to see in this document. So you realize that it becomes a very important part, okay? Second would be paintings in India. Third would be music, dance and architecture, because they have an overlapping theme. For example, you might get asked UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List, okay? Fourth would be religion and philosophy. It again overlaps with Buddhism, Jainism. Sometimes they even would go into the schools of Jainism. It is an important chapter. We have had around 14 questions from this. Chapter 5 would be martial arts. I have just placed it because we did get one question and sometimes it is in news. So that would be it. Then it would be literature. Again, overlapping with ancient. Okay. Seventh would be festival. Sometimes, they would give you a match the column like where you have to actually match fairs, festivals to the places they are celebrated at. And finally, eighth would be miscellaneous, which might include sometimes question like where is production of traditional sarees happening and all of that. Okay. I hope you have noted down the themes. So I think I have discussed with you art and culture, the sources that I used, the important themes. Now I would want to tell you that although throughout the history, okay, let me do this part later when we cover modern. First, let me cover modern with you. Then I will tell you actually how to memorize and how to keep revising it. Modern history, I think all of us feel that out of the 4 parts of history, this is the most important and this has, more chances of getting questions that are solvable, which is correct. Again, firstly, let me discuss the sources. Evergreen, Spectrum. I think this is an old one. The new ones has even more number of pages. So again, firstly, I want to tell you that I did read it. In fact, every chapter, after every chapter ended, I used to put a sticky note and I actually used to consolidate it. Okay. So I did read it through the initial years and I not only read it, I digested it well. I also tried consolidating it into small parts, but again, then I failed. Whenever I used to try make notes out of this, I felt like I was just repeating. But when I used to sit to revise it 90 days before prelims, it felt very daunting. So even for modern history, I had shifted to the revision booklet. If you have already done some other revision booklet, you have made your own notes for Spectrum or whatever you have. If you have consolidated Spectrum in any way, stick to it. There is no need to change your sources. Also, I feel NCERTs at this time would not be fruitful for modern history. So you stick to one source, okay? That can be, and if you have done Spectrum very well, stick to it. Don't shift. Now, firstly, I will make you write the themes of modern history and then overall I will discuss with you how to actually memorize history, how to integrate maps to it, okay? Please write. This has a lot of themes, so I'll be a little quick. Maybe you can pause the video because it has overall roughly 18 to 19 themes. First would be India on the eve of British conquest. Second would be important personalities. And I think the questions from this particular theme have been increasing, okay? Sometimes they would ask who wrote songs from prison. Then they would ask with reference to the book Deshar Katha, okay? We have had roughly 12 questions from this theme, a very important theme, important personalities. Third would be constitutional reforms during British rule. This will include the acts that we study even in the polity, the first chapter. Fourth would be British expansion and consolidation. Here, they might ask you about governor generals, for example, Lord Wellesley or something of that kind. So those questions I have placed in this. Fifth would be, now please understand, this is very important, 5th and 6th, you have to study uprisings, keeping in mind one part would be popular uprisings up to 1857. Sometimes we tend to ignore that part. And second would be after 1857. Next would be socio-religious movements. Okay, we usually get a match the pair kind of question, or we might get asked what Shatya Sodhak Samaj organized. Next would be rise of militant nationalism. Again, we are very confused regarding what personalities do actually fall in this. So kindly read this part properly. Next would be first phase of revolutionary activities. That is what we are confused between what is militant nationalism and what is revolutionary activities. These two are not same. You have to be a little careful, okay? In 2022, we got a question on Gadar Party. 10th would be Mahatma Gandhi, emergence and ideology. This is again a very important topic, and if you do this properly, questions are solvable from this. Next would be nationalist response in wake of Second World War. Next is CDM and roundtable conferences. Please be very clear about the overlapping, what happened, who participated in which roundtable conference. Next would be Quit India movement. And now, important Congress sessions. Who led it? Where was it? Where did it happen? What was the place? 15th, in Together One Theme, I have placed organizations. You know, all of those Hindu Mahasabha, All India Home Rule League, all the organizations that we study. Next would be Evolution of Civil Services in India. We got a question 2020, Fort William College. So this is an important theme. And then Development of Education. Again, we have got roughly 2-3 questions from here. Sometimes they will link it to what act permitted what balance. And then next important theme, economic impact of British rule in India. Okay. This is again very important. Here they would ask you what were the negative impacts and if some positives. For example, they will ask you who gave the critic of colonialism. And now the last theme, again miscellaneous. In this, you might get, if you see this document, again the PDF for all the PYQs themes that I have discussed with you with the questions will be attached in the description. Please download it and see it for yourself. You need to analyze it. I am just giving you the themes. The work beyond this has to happen through you. Okay, so now I think modern is done. All 4 parts, sources are done. I have discussed with you the important themes. I genuinely hope you have taken a note. And trust me, when you see these themes and then go back to your books, you will have a better picture of where to put focus on, what you can skip, what you can ignore. Because if you just read without having an idea that this falls under the same theme, you think every chapter is different, which is not. All personalities through all the chapters have to be read under one theme. Okay. So the sources have been discussed, the importance has been discussed. Now coming to the last part, the most important problem. Ma'am, याद नहीं होता है, बहुत बार रिवाइज करना पड़ता है. Firstly, if you want to memorize history, especially in terms of how the questions are coming now the questions are asked in terms of timeline. 6th century AD में क्या हो रहा था? तो firstly you have to have an idea कि 6th century AD में actually कौन था, क्या था, ठीक है? The simple answer to this is that you start focusing on theme lines. Theme lines in terms of what was the actual theme of that area in terms of, either you can study dynasty wise or what I did, you can study actually. I used to make a timeline like this. I will try attaching a picture or PDF of this. It didn't have any information. It just used to have one keyword from that period. That, for example, 1206 to 1526, Delhi Sultanate. In this, 1206 will have slave dynasty, just one word written. 1290 will have Khilji. 1320 will have Tughlaq. And then 1451 to 1526, they can have Lodhis. Okay. So just one word. So this is whole medieval India timeline just written in one page. What it will help when you see, once you study properly, you will remember the whole story. Okay. But then in the last 2-3 days, also one thing, again I'll talk about it here only. In the last 3-4 days, history has to be revised. Otherwise, you will forget the nuances of what happened in 1919, what happened in 1935, and you will mark the easy questions wrong. So, and then in last 3-4 days, whole book cannot be revised. Even revision booklets completely cannot be revised. Okay. So what you need to do is that you have to prepare a timeline. And now again the memorization also will happen through this acting, what we call active recalling, or thinking loudly. As and when you would want to revise history, once you have read it properly, just sit with a blank paper, write years. For example, now you want to revise from 1757 to 1857. Take a paper, start writing years and just write one key important event that happened in that year. What exactly happened in 1757? What exactly happened in 1758, if there is something significant? Just the timeline and one keyword, and then later when you look at that one page, it will give you flashbacks of whole history. So firstly, revising history is difficult because beyond a point it demands memorization, and secondly, compared to other subjects, you need a lot of scribbling to do it. Okay, like this is my medieval India timeline. Again, I will show you. This is my whole ancient. I had just put 2 A4 sheets together. And this is the whole ancient art and culture as well as timeline. Everything, art, architecture, dances, songs, all in one page. It's just timeline based. Year and what dynasty was dominating, what was happening in very brief. So one day before exam, rather than me forgetting ki Burza home kahan hai, I had a very key, like this is called, I used to call it my art and culture key. So the idea is that you just write the timeline on a sheet again and again. Firstly, it will help you to memorize, and secondly, with each iteration, the timeline will become more crisp. Then you can have whole ancient India timeline on just one page. If you have studied well until now, you would know the story. To revise in the last days, you just need one keyword from that era, one keyword from that dynasty, and that has to be in terms of timeline. So I really encourage you, because even, and this is not something that is optional as of now, because now they're directly asking questions based on ADs and centuries. So if you're not actually able to connect what happened there, you will not be able to solve the question. So just keep writing the timeline again and again, and even if you do it 3-4 times, the fourth time you write it, firstly you will have memorized most of it, and secondly then you will have legit 1 or 2 pages where your whole history timeline would be summarized, and you can even revise it one day before going to the exam. Okay, so firstly would be this timeline approach, which helped me a lot to get those tricky questions correct. And secondly, one more important thing, almost all the subjects in prelims have scope to integrate maps, but one subject which I think has a lot of scope is history. And I'm not just talking about art and culture. Even in modern history, if suppose you can just take a small map, I used to do this, I used to take a lot of small maps, and then suppose I am studying about music, folk music, then I will just place them in a map and stick it to the page where I am reading music about, because then it will help you develop a pictographic memory. The memorization will become a little easy. Then you can mark so many things on map. For art and culture, so you definitely can, the art, architecture, but even the complicated dynasties of medieval India. You know, what was this side of Vijayanagar, then which dynasty was dominating when. If you place it on a map, right, it will become easy for you to memorize. So I really encourage you that apart from art and culture, so definitely you should, on one map you can mark the theatres, one map you can mark the dances, but apart from that, even in modern, ancient and medieval, the dynasties you can actually mark. Okay, for example, you would want to know in IVC what place had what cities. We get asked, no, where is Dholavira, what is its importance, all of that while reading, maybe take a blank map and mark on that. That will help you memorize better and recall better. Okay, now I think I have discussed with you everything I wanted to regarding history. We have discussed its importance. I have told you that you should not think of skipping it completely. You can put a little less focus depending on how your preparation is, where you are studying from. You can do that, but please don't completely skip it. Even in medieval, if you feel like completely skipping it, just at least do the terminologies, because in medieval, more often than not, questions come from terminology. They will ask, what did this mean in medieval era? So maybe you can try doing at least that. And to decide what is important, what is not, firstly I have given you the themes, and the questions that were asked in those themes, the PDFs will be attached regarding that. Please download it and work with PYQs to make history doable, and to limit it and to not feel overwhelmed by it. You actually need to know what UPSC is asking, so you should be doing that. Apart from this, I think, yeah, that should be all from my side. In the description, you will find all the PDFs. I will also be attaching the marathon classes for ancient, medieval, art and culture, etc. that Ankit sir has taken, and he has taught by this timeline method. In fact, I learned from this method from him, and he has also made sure that the lectures are segregated theme wise. So if you would want, if needed at all, you can take a look. You can just, if some part of history is particularly feeling difficult to you and you would want to actually need some assistance in terms of you not being able to understand the timeline, and you would want that someone explains it to you, maybe you can refer to that class. And if you have already sorted that part out, then make sure you revise it again and again. I'm pretty sure that whatever you would have done would be good. I hope the ideas that I provided you will make you feel that history is doable. It is a little less complicated than it was for you before. And hopefully through all of this, you actually prepare history in a manner that actually can make your questions get correct, that is aligned to UPSC, that is theme wise, and that is through timeline methods. I will see you into the next video. Until then, take care.